I don't know. It still doesn't even feel real to me that I'm sitting here doing a video talking about Jabari in the past tense. It is Danielle here with Animal Care. Today's video is not going to be one of those light and fluffy fun ones. As we know, working in the animal field, we have so much fun and so many animals to love and care for, but a lot of times when that happens, there's a lot of heartbreak involved as well, when you have to say goodbye to certain animals that you've loved for a very long time. As you guys all know, you know Jabari. Jabari, the African serval. He's been one of the most amazing animals I've ever been around, ever worked with, and maybe that's just because he's a cat. And I think you guys all know how much I love cats. But back in 2017, we got a call from our FWC officer. I just remember the day I was walking down the back road just doing my normal stuff, and Rick Brown calls and he's like, "Hey, so I just got a hold of this serval. He's about 3 months old and he was confiscated from illegal ownership. They took good care of him, but they just didn't have the proper permitting. But he asked if we had any room to take him on. He had him in his possession at that moment. I immediately was like, let me call you right back. I called Mark. Mark gave me the blessing, and I drove about an hour and a half to a Lowe's parking lot and met up with Rick Brown and picked up this beautiful little 3-month-old serval. We don't really know much of his history or where he originally came from prior to the owners that had him, but he was a beautiful little boy about 3 months old, and he came here to live with us, and it changed our lives forever.
My name is Hannah. I've worked in animal care for 5 years now. Jabari was the most amazing animal I've ever met. He was a huge part of my life. He was one of the first cats I ever worked with in the zoo industry. The moment I met him, I fell in love with him. Everybody does. As soon as they met Jabari, they loved him. It's obviously really hard to talk about because we all miss him very much. We spent every day with him. Every day we would go down in the afternoon and we would obviously feed him his dinner, and we would play with him and just form a relationship with him. He was very playful. He loved to jump in the air for his tennis balls and go get them out of the pond. He was fun to train. He would do anything you asked him to do for some chicken. And he was just a huge part of our lives, and we're going to miss him very much.
So Jabari, he was beloved by not only everyone here, but by anyone who ever met him. He was just a special guy. He was patient. He just had a gentle nature, which isn't typical of servals. He was definitely a one of a kind. Anybody who came in to meet Jabari just absolutely loved him, walked away with, a smile and amazing memories. He was just something different. He had a special bond with a lot of us. He just gave so much love, and we loved him so much in return. Having to go through that with him, getting him at 3 months old and losing him at 8 years old was just heartbreaking.
He's been one of the best cats that ever existed, and many of you know Lamasi, the little girl bobcat that he lived with. We had her already, so when he came to us at 3 months old, she was about a year old, and she was also a rescue as well. She was an orphaned wild bobcat that had to be hand-reared in a rehabilitation center up in North Florida. But she imprinted on people, especially when they're that young. It's really difficult. So Lamasi had already been with us for a year, and when Jabari came to us at 3 months old, he was already the size of the 1-year-old bobcat. The servals have the longest legs in the world, but the two of them, we did some introductions with them through some mesh, through a howdy, and they were immediately best friends. She was kind of like a mother to him in a way, but after some introductions with our keepers, they hit it off, and they've lived together ever since for the past 8 years. And I just remember I didn't tell anybody I was picking him up back in 2017. I just got the blessing from Mark. I drove an hour and a half. I went and picked him up, and I pulled down this back road right here, and I had the girls come out. Jessica, I think, was probably at the time the most excited.
The first time I met Jabari, he was 3 months old. Still at that time though, Lamasi was a year and he was double her size easily. But we introduced them and they became the best of friends, and that overjoyed both of us because they both came to us separately. So we were so happy that they had a friend and someone else to cuddle with when it was cold or, you know, play with. And I can still remember his little self with his giant ears when he was just a little guy. It's hard. It's the hardest part of this job. We care and we love so deeply, and then this happens. Something totally out of your control, and it takes a while to come back from it. There's a piece of my heart missing now that he's gone. We still have other animals to take care of, and we'll push on, and the whole while we'll remember his jumps and his little chirp that he used to make, and he'll always live on, not only in our hearts, but he'll always live on at Gatorland. He was definitely one of a kind.
The first day I ever met Jabari, I was only 20 years old. I was very new to the job, and I was really excited, as anybody would be the first time they meet a serval. And he walked up to me and gave me a sniff down like all cats would do. And he instantly started rubbing his head on me and laid down right next to me and just kind of laid there with me. And that's kind of when I knew he was special. He was a big deal. And he was like that with almost everybody that he met. There were a lot of people that got to go in and meet him, family members and celebrities and influencers, and everybody loved Jabari so much. He was loving like that with everybody. We liked to joke that he liked the stinkiest people, because if you were out working hard all day and you were extra sweaty or smelled like other animals, he would rub all over you and lay with you, and he loved that too. If we were cleaning in there or adding pine or raking, he loved to help out and see what we were doing. He was very curious and loved to be involved with everything that we did all the time. We all had amazing relationships with Jabari, and it's something that I'll never forget.
Everyone was just so excited. I mean, you could not fall in love with him from the moment you saw him. I mean, his legs were too long and his ears were too big for his body. He touched so many people's lives. So many people met him. Everybody loved him. You couldn't, even if you're not a cat person, you could not love Jabari. He was not like your typical serval. Stereotypically, servals are, you know, hissy and swatty and, you know, kind of always have an attitude. Even when they greet you, they typically hiss, and, you know, it's just kind of their personality. But Jabari was honestly more dog-like than cat-like in a lot of ways. We came in and visited him every single day, and he would come up, greet us with his little headbutts, and of course just his motor was going. He was purring all the time, and I'm sure you've seen in a lot of pictures and videos, you know, he loved to be stretched. So we'd pick him up and we'd stretch him real big, and he'd spread his toes and, you know, stretch, and that was one of his favorite things to do. And, you know, we're gonna miss that. We do miss that terribly already. It's kind of hard to talk about without getting emotional. We've had a pretty tough time this past couple of weeks, but I know everybody's gonna miss him. It's not just us, with the amount of people that have met him and came here just to see Jabari. He was such a great educational ambassador. People would come up to the glass and we would be in there just playing with the cats. One of his most favorite times a day was when we had his favorite tennis ball, and we'd get him to down and stay, and we'd throw the ball up and he would jump 10 to 12 feet straight up in the air. Really show off those kind of natural abilities and skills that servals have. Everybody would just ooh and ah and hand clap outside the glass and get some amazing videos, and, you know, we're able to talk to people on the side of the enclosure about where these guys came from and why they are here, and, you know, why it's important to do a lot of research before getting any kind of exotic animal, and having the proper enclosures and knowing what you're getting yourself into, because these guys definitely don't belong in a house. You need that wide open space to be able to show off their natural abilities and do everything that they would naturally do. We've all We've all been crying every single day. It's been very, very difficult for us. These past 8 years, Jabari has been seemingly healthy. He has never had any medical issues or concerns, anything like that. Blood work always came back. Was just the perfect boy. A couple of months ago, we noticed that his behavior and his demeanor was a little off, but with the heat kicking in here in Florida, even though he's an African serval, he naturally comes from a place where it's really, really hot. You know, he was not born in Africa. So at first we kind of chalked it up to that. Of course, I messaged the vet and just let him know, you know, he's still eating and everything, but he just doesn't seem himself. So the vet had come out, Dr. Bogan came out, and we ran some blood work and we did a physical exam. Temperature was good. We ran the blood work, got the results back the next day, and it showed slightly elevated white blood cell counts, which can mean many different things. The first one probably being an infection of some sort. Maybe he had an upper respiratory infection, like a cold maybe. So he got treated with a 7-day round of antibiotic. He started acting normal again. He had been eating just fine. Thought we were out of the woods, you know, good to go. And then he, you know, started acting a little weird all over again. So we had the vet come back out. We did x-rays just to make sure that there wasn't anything initially internally that we could see going on, fluid buildup, anything like that. Well, the x-rays did show what appeared to originally have looked like fluid built up around like his heart and his lungs. You know, we're all trying to stay optimistic. The most amazing part about this is Jabari was just hands down one of the best cats I've ever worked with doing vet procedures, because all of this was not under anesthesia. So well trained. He sat very still for all of his x-rays. Just amazing, almost unheard of. Sat there pretty. Let us get multiple x-rays from each side to be able to see both sides of him. It's incredible. Because of what we'd seen in the x-rays, we decided to go ahead and sedate and bring him into a building and do some sonograms on him, because now we were kind of thinking that maybe that fluid might be a mass in his chest region. And so we were back there, myself and his keepers and Dr. Bogan. We were doing the sonogram, and it was clear as day that he had a giant mass that was around his heart, and possibly a collapsed lung as well. So it was cancerous. He had a giant mass engulfing his heart, resting up against his lungs. And there was really no way out of the woods. Definitely explained some of his behavior. Needless to say, in that moment, you really don't know what to think or say. It kind of didn't feel real. Kind of felt like I was in a dream. We all just kind of stared at each other, eyes welling up, because like there's no way this could be real. It's Jabari. He's perfect. Nothing could be wrong with him.
It is very hard for us knowing that he is not around anymore, and we are all going to miss him so much. He meant so much to everybody that he met. He had a great relationship with Lamasi, who we call his sister, but is a bobcat, and watching their relationship together was also incredible. They loved each other very much. They would play and they would wrestle like siblings, snuggle up together. And when it was cold and raining, they loved to be right next to each other, and we would bring them blankets, and Jabari loved blankets. When it was cold outside, he would go under the blanket, and I don't even know what to say anymore. Jabari was just loved by a lot of people, and the legacy that he leaves behind is incredible, and we're all going to miss him very much, and he will be thought of and missed every single day.
He loved his partner, the bobcat Lamasi, so much, and she loved him so much in return. And to have that missing is also very sad. Now Lamasi gets to rely on us a little bit more for that bond and that love. She's been doing good and getting extra attention from us, of course, but you know, his legacy will live on in every heart he touched. Everybody knows how special he was. It's so sad that he's gone.
Dr. Bogan immediately said that he would recommend letting him go peacefully, because in order to try to do any kind of treatment or surgery on something like that, because of the way it was engulfed around his heart, it wouldn't have worked. So unfortunately, in that moment, like one of the hardest decisions there is to make, especially when you work in the animal field, or for those of you that have pets or animals, you know, it's the worst day of your life. So we unfortunately had to say goodbye to him. in that moment. And this was just a couple of weeks ago. It still doesn't feel real. And I think the hardest part too that we all realized was, how is Lamasi going to take this? Lamasi the bobcat, the one he's lived with for 8 years. Because they are all each other has known, aside from their keepers. We had decided, which is also extremely difficult to do, very emotional, very rough, but we didn't want her just wondering where he is for the rest of her life. They were very close, they loved each other, they were bonded. So after everything was said and done and we said goodbye to him, we wanted her to also say goodbye to him so she could realize that he's not coming back. We took him back down to the Bobcat Bayou and we placed him inside with her and we let her say goodbye to him. Sniff all over him. She did headbutt him. She gave him some kisses, was kind of grooming his neck area, and she sniffed him from head to toe. And I think it's so important when two animals are bonded for them to realize that they're actually gone. And she's not just wondering where he went. He just disappeared out of thin air and never came back, because they're smart animals know. They can sense when a heart's beating or when it's not beating, you know, if they're breathing or not breathing. And she definitely knew. And it was very heartbreaking, but also incredible to watch the process of that. But I will say that Lamasi is doing just fine. She is not wandering around wondering where he is. She is still eating just fine. She's playing. She's been super lovey with us, super lovable. You know, and I think that brings joy to us, knowing that, you know, she was able to have some closure and, you know, she'll live on just fine, not a problem. You know, bobcats and servals are naturally completely solitary animals, only coming together for mating out in the wild or raising their own cubs. We aren't concerned for her. She's doing wonderful. She's okay. I'm sure she thinks about him and she misses him just like we do. But as far as her behavior and her way of life, nothing has changed on her end. But this has definitely been one of the most devastating losses for us, as we were kind of blindsided by it. We definitely didn't expect it to be a cancerous mass. We still have to go down to that Bobcat Bayou every day. We still have to feed all of these animals. We have so many animals under our care that we have to continue to love and care for. And I just think this is, you know, if anybody were to ask what's the hardest part of your job, it's these moments that just kind of hit you like a ton of bricks, and it comes out of nowhere when you're not expecting it. I don't even know what else to say. Like I said, it's just kind of crazy to sit here making this video talking about Jabari in the past tense. It still doesn't feel real. I don't even know if it's fully set in for all of us. But I know all of you will also miss him. He'll live in our hearts forever as one of the best servals that ever walked the face of this planet. I'm gonna miss kissing his face every day and giving him his stretches and feeling his purrs, and he would come up and lay next to us and cuddle, and we would bring blankets down there, and one of his favorite things to do was knead or make dough like many cats do. He absolutely loved doing that. He would profusely drool at the mouth, and he just loved making dough and laying on the blankets, cuddling up with us, especially when it was the cooler months here in Florida. It's not always rainbows and sunshine in the animal care world, and we go through the same grieving process as it is losing a human loved one. Like I said, we have so many other animals that we have to get up and come to work and care for, and they also need our love and our attention and everything that they need to thrive as well. So through these hard times, you know, we always do stay positive, and we know that, you know, there's so many other animals that need us. And myself and his main keepers and the whole animal care department and everybody that worked here that met him and just adored him, he will definitely never be forgotten. One of the most sweetest, laid back, loving cats that we ever had the pleasure of working with and loving.